Hello there and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to tell you what it means to have a Virgo moon. Our moon sign is different from our sun sign. Our sun sign represents our most conscious expression, whereas our moon sign represents our most secret inner emotional world. People who do not know you and people who are merely acquaintances will likely not be aware of your moon sign traits and characteristics. The people that you are closer with and the people that you are more intimate with will likely be more aware of these characteristics in you. The reason for this is because our inner emotional world is something that we keep quite hidden from people we don't know, and we usually only show this to people that we trust and that we are close with. People that do not know us might notice our sun sign quite easily because, like I said, this is our conscious expression. However, our moon sign is not that evident. What does it mean to have a Virgo moon? Natives who have a Virgo moon kind of have this feeling that they're not allowed to make mistakes. When they do make mistakes, they're incredibly hard on themselves and they beat themselves up for it. Natives who have a Virgo moon were likely scolded and shouted at when they were younger when they made mistakes. They never learned that it's okay to make mistakes. They never learned that you usually fail and you try and try again. To them, failure means the ultimate end. Because of this, Virgo moon people are highly perfectionistic. They have to always have everything right. They have to get everything right because if they do make a mistake, it will feel like it's the end of the world. The reason for this is because they likely grew up in some kind of dynamic at home where if they did make mistakes, they weren't encouraged to try again, but they were rather shouted at or insulted because they made this mistake. As adults, they have the subconscious fear that people are going to look down on them and get angry at them and that the world will basically end if they make a mistake. So that is why they live life with this high amount of tension to always be perfect, to always get everything right. That is why Virgo moons can be some of your most anxious and nervous people that are out there. When a Virgo moon was young, they received very little support, encouragement, and validation. And there was a lot of fear tactics instilled into them. So what I mean by this is instead of people saying to them, you can do it, you can accomplish this, you'll be great, people would say to them, if you do not accomplish this, this will happen. If this does not happen, you will end up like this. So they have this subconscious fear that something bad is going to happen if they do not get things right, if they're not perfect. And this was instilled into them when they were a child. Very often, people who have a moon in Virgo likely had a family member that was ill or was sick when they were young. When they were young, they had to learn to be very caring and considerate towards other people. They had to put their wants and their needs aside and they had to care for other people. Very often, people with a Virgo moon will have this dynamic in their childhood where they had to grow up incredibly fast and take responsibility and take care of other people or another person in their family, maybe because this person might have been ill or this person was unable to look after themselves. Virgo moon natives learned from a very young age that their sense of value in this world comes from serving others. It comes from helping others and looking after others, because this is how they were valued when they were younger. They were only really valued when they were looking after another person or doing something for another person. So as adults, they have a very similar mentality where they feel that they have to care for other people, they have to nurture other people or take responsibility for other people. Otherwise, they're not going to have a purpose. Otherwise, they're going to be worthless. The major difference between a Virgo moon and a Virgo sun is Virgo suns feel this big burden for this responsibility that they have. So Virgo suns get very annoyed at the fact that they have to consistently be serving everyone and they have to be helping everyone because this is the only way that there is value to them. Whereas Virgo moons, on the other hand, they don't necessarily get annoyed by this. They just naturally do it. It's just who they are. That is just how they naturally operate. So if a person is a Virgo moon and they don't have a Virgo sun, you can actually see them serving and taking responsibility for other people more than what a Virgo sun would, and they will complain much less than what the Virgo sun would. Virgo moon people have very deep, complex emotions, but they'll never show it. So a lot of the times when other people see Virgo moons, they'll think they're kind of cold or emotionless, almost like they're this machine who's just working and doing all the time. But that's not what's really going on inside them. Virgo moons just don't really know how to relate and to connect with other people in a meaningful way. So what I mean by this is a Virgo moon will rather look after you, or they'll serve you, or they'll take some big responsibility into their hand to make sure that you're okay. But when it comes to asking you what's going on with you and your emotions, when it comes to actually talking about emotions and working through emotions with them, they completely close down. They do not really know how to deal with and handle the emotions of other people. But what they do know how to do is to look after other people and take responsibility for them in this physical world. A Virgo moon will do everything for you. A Virgo moon will be at your every beck and call. But when you tell them to listen to your emotions and to take it in and to actually understand it, that is something they might struggle with. The reason for this is because when they were younger, they likely did not have a very strong emotional connection with a parent or a family member, but the way that they were made to feel that they're loved and that they're valued is when they would get rewarded for the chores they would do or the tasks and the responsibilities they would take on for this person. But as a child, they never really learned how to develop a strong emotional bond because, like I said, there was not much emphasis placed on this. They were raised in a dynamic where doing chores and serving others in a physical sense was a way to show love. It was a way to show that you care. And talking about emotions and going deep into emotions and that kind of thing was not something that they learned when they were young. A Virgo moon will never ever tell you what's wrong with them. They'll never tell you what's bothering them. They'll never tell you about their anxieties and their fears and their worries because they know that no one is actually able to comprehend it, and also they do not know how to open up regarding their emotions. They have this subconscious belief that people do not care about their emotion. People do not care about them, so they never really talk about their emotions and what's going on inside them. However, when there is a person in their life that asks them what's going on and they can see that this person has genuine interest in their emotions, they will open up to this person. But it has to come from the other person. The other person has to show them that they care about their emotions and that they want the Virgo moon to open up and they want to connect with them. If a Virgo moon does not receive the signal of wanting to connect, they will not do it. So it's always up to the other person to initiate an emotional deep connection with the Virgo moon. It will never really come from them. Because they are so perfectionistic, they don't really want to bother other people with their emotions, and they kind of just want to keep their focus on what's needed and being responsible and adhering to their duty. They don't want to upset the flow of things by letting their emotions affect things. Virgo moons always keep themselves incredibly well composed. You will never see a Virgo moon losing their shit. Everything about them is so well composed and put together, and you'll never tell that there's something wrong with them. Even when their world is crashing down and everything is ending, they have this perfect composure about them. They always hide their insecurities and their worries and their troubles behind this well-composed face, and you'll never ever guess that this perfect person has so many things actually going on inside them. Now the thing is, Virgo moons in essence protect themselves because they don't want to open up emotionally and be vulnerable, but the problem is when it comes to relationships, this is a very big problem because they need to be emotionally vulnerable. They need to open up and talk about emotions and connect with the other person's emotions in order to be in intimate relationships. And this is something a Virgo moon struggles with. So very often, Virgo moons struggle in intimate relationships due to this, because they cannot open up regarding their real emotions. They cannot open up regarding what's actually going on inside them, what they're actually feeling. And they're always trying to show this perfect, composed person who has everything together and that there's nothing going on and everything is hunky-dory and fine and dandy, but actually they're breaking inside, they're crushing inside. In order for Virgo moons to have happy, functioning relationships, they do need to allow themselves to be more emotionally vulnerable and open. A person with a Virgo moon would have most likely had a mother who could have been rather perfectionistic as well, and she could have been quite a tense, nervous, anxious person as well. The Virgo moon's mother is kind of very similar to the Virgo moon themselves, in a sense where they wanted to keep themselves very well composed. They wanted to seem like this perfect person in the eyes of the world, but underneath they're so nervous and they're so stressed and there's so much tension and negative emotions. The Virgo moon always saw their mother being so well composed in public, but in secret there's all this tension and all these negative emotions that she does not deal with very healthily. Virgo moon natives in essence have adopted this nature from their mother, where they're super well composed in public, but behind the scenes they're super nervous and they're super tense. A Virgo moon's mother could have been a person who was highly regarded in the eyes of the world. What I mean by this is she could have been very hardworking. She could have been very successful. She might have had to work long hours, or she had to possibly go away for very long in order to work. And the Virgo moon child could have been a little bit neglected due to this. The Virgo moon child had to learn to grow up very fast and be responsible and fend for themselves. They weren't allowed to be emotionally vulnerable because there was nobody they could be emotionally vulnerable to. So at a very young age, they had to learn to deal with their own emotions and suck it up and be strong. A Virgo moon child does feel like they are unable to actually ask their parents what they want to ask them. They're unable to ask their parents what it is that they desire or what it is that they need. And that their parents are so busy adhering to their worldly duty. They're so busy trying to become successful or get their job done that they're actually neglecting the Virgo moon child. Very often a Virgo moon child could have been raised in a dynamic where the parents were very rich and they were very hardworking. However, they were never ever home. And the Virgo moon child was always home alone. Through this, the Virgo moon child had to learn to be emotionally strong on their own, and their defense that they have learned through this is to just keep all their emotions bottled up and to never really show it to anyone. They learned when they were younger, if they asked their parents for something, if they tell their parents what's going on with their emotions, their parents won't actually listen. Even when the Virgo moon opened up about what's going on inside them as a child, their parents kept working, and the Virgo moon kept having to be home alone and be alone most of the time. So they learned that even if they voice their concerns and even if they speak up about what's going on with them, no one really cares and things won't really change. So through this dynamic, they just don't say anything. Virgo moon people are amazing healers. The reason for this is because they've spent such a big portion of their life feeling alone and feeling like nobody will listen to them and nobody will care. So they respond to this by actually being that person who's always caring and always helping and always healing other people, because they know what it's like when no one actually cares about them. They know what it's like to be entirely alone and to have no one to ask for help. Like Scorpio moon natives, Virgo moon natives have this ability to recognize the suffering around them. They can see the suffering in the eyes of others. They can see the suffering in the world around them, and they're very sensitive to this. Virgo is the sign that represents the Virgin Maiden. In astrology, Virgo is the sign of healing and the sign of nurturing. Because of this, Virgo moons tend to always want to help and want to heal other people, even though they have no idea how to help and heal themselves. Virgo moon people need to learn to take some of this energy and time and focus that they give to other people in serving them and helping them and healing them, and they need to actually focus this energy on themselves. But this is something that they'll really struggle with, because like I said earlier, their sense of value comes from how much they're able to serve and help others, it's very difficult for them to step away from this and to only focus on themselves, because they won't know how to find a sense of value when they're not serving others. Because Moon and Virgo natives know what it's like to be in pain and to be hurt, but to not be heard. Virgo Moon natives do love to stand up for the underdog. Virgo Moon natives really, really love animals, and the reason for this is because animals cannot stand up for themselves. Animals cannot speak up for themselves. Animals, in essence, are not understood. Just like what a Virgo moon cannot speak up for themselves, and just like what a Virgo moon is not understood, they relate to this quality in animals. Animals exist in this world, but they're not actually able to open up about what's going on inside them and their emotions, and this is exactly how a Virgo moon exists as well. Part of the reason why it can be challenging for Virgo moons to process and deal with their emotions, and why they have so much inner anxiety, is because very often they try to logically process their emotions instead of actually feeling them. So they try and come up with a logical conclusion as to why they feel the way they do, and they do not allow themselves to just get lost within the emotional side of life and to actually accept that we are humans and we have emotions and we can be vulnerable at times. A Virgo moon will rather tell themselves, no, the reason I'm feeling this way is because this happened and this and this and this, instead of just actually allowing themselves to feel something. Virgo moon is the one sign that, more than any other moon sign, really, really internalizes and bottles up their emotions. They do it to such an extent that they can often experience headaches, muscle cramps, tummy cramps, and all kinds of physical ailments. Very often, Virgo moons live their entire life with physical ailments. They'll likely have stomach pains for weeks on end. They'll have headaches for years on end. They'll have all these physical ailments that they consistently have to deal with. They're never really in a completely healthy state, and that is because they never actually deal with their emotions, and their emotions go and sit in their body and it manifests as a physical ailment. That's the only way that they can release this negative emotion, is through it actually manifesting as a disease or a sickness or an ailment. When Virgo moons aren't sick all the time, when they don't have all these issues with their bodies all the time, then it shows you that they're actually allowing themselves to deal with their emotions and they're processing their emotions healthily. However, when you see a Virgo moon who's consistently got issues with their body, it does show that they do not really process their emotions in healthy ways. When the Virgo moon was a child, they also likely noticed that the only times their parents or that other people would actually really pay attention to them and care for them was when they were ill or when they were injured and when they weren't feeling very well. So in essence, very often Virgo moons can pretend to not feel well, or they can exaggerate some kind of physical ailment just to get a response from another person where they feel like they're being cared for or loved by this person. Very often, a Virgo moon uses their ailment as a way to see if another person cares for them, and also as a way to get care and love from other people. Because like I said, they don't actually know how to ask for this care and love straight up, because they don't actually know how to deal with these emotional kind of things. It's very interesting because Virgo moons are consistently looking after everybody else, and they're always healing other people and tending to other people, but they're never tending to themselves. And they consistently get all these physical problems with their bodies because they're so busy overexerting themselves for others, but they never look after themselves. But the only way for a Virgo moon to be looked after when they have these physical problems is by other people. So it's a very, very rough cycle. A Virgo moon needs to learn how to look after themselves the exact same way that they look after other people, but they won't. I know a guy with a Virgo moon who literally spends all day, every day, serving others and doing stuff for other people, taking responsibility for them and helping them. This Virgo moon guy rarely ever brushed his teeth. He never took 2 minutes twice a day to himself just to brush his teeth. What eventually happened was his teeth became so nasty that he had to get some of his teeth pulled. But had he just taken the time for himself to look after himself, he would have avoided this situation. But he was instead helping everybody else all the time, and he was never ever taking the time for himself to actually look after himself. Virgo moons continuously end up in this predicament where they give everything that they are to others, but they won't give any little bit of that time to themselves. And then they end up in these desperate situations where they're in so much pain and they're so hurt, or their health is like deteriorating because they're overexerting themselves for others so much and not giving anything to themselves. Just like Taurus moons and Capricorn moons, who are also fellow earth sign moons, Virgo moons want to work hard and they want to be successful. Virgo moons have a duty and a responsibility that they need to adhere to. When they're feeling emotions and when emotions creep up, they can't deal with their duty and their responsibility the way they actually need to. This is why they don't like their emotions. They don't like dealing with it, and they shove it aside so that they can deal with their duties and their responsibilities. Like I said, Virgo is the sign of the perfectionist. They want to achieve this sense of inner and outer composure. However, because we're human beings, we do feel emotions. But what ends up happening with a Virgo moon is they feel guilty for these emotions that they feel. They make themselves feel bad, and they kind of have this inner dialogue with themselves where they insult themselves for feeling a certain way or for having a certain emotion. It is quite a crazy thing that they do, but they do this all the time. And this is how they control their inner emotional world, through having this inner dialogue where they're fighting with themselves because they're feeling something. Because everything is about control and order and perfectionism to them. When they can't control their emotions the way they want to, they create this inner critical dialogue with themselves. A Virgo moon has a very, very strong inner voice that criticizes themselves all the time. Virgo moons are actually so good at dealing with criticism from other people, and the reason for this is because they've criticized themselves way more than what these people have. Those people have nothing on the criticism that they give themselves. Like Scorpio moons, Virgo moons are very, very aware of the hidden pain and suffering that other people go through, and they take it upon themselves to end this pain or to lessen the suffering around them. They want to change the world, but one person alone cannot change the world. But they end up putting this responsibility onto them to change everything, to change the world, to make everything better. But they can't, and they end up really, really criticizing themselves because they can't. When it comes to love, it is very important that a person with a moon in Virgo finds a partner who will not take advantage of their tendency to serve, but who will actually serve the Virgo moon back and help alleviate this responsibility that they put onto themselves. A Virgo moon native needs a partner who will take this sense of responsibility and pressure off their back, not someone who gives them a greater sense of responsibility and pressure. This is my video on the moon in Virgo. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see some more astrology and spirituality videos. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this video. Are you a moon in Virgo, and can you relate to what I said? Do you know any moon in Virgos who have these traits? Check out the link to my Patreon below as well if you'd like to become one of my patrons and if you'd like to support this channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.